think this is a good note for everybody out there.
He says that I don't pull well on TikTok, so
He doesn't.
It's
It's just a fact. It just doesn't pull well. It's called social media for a reason, and it's not selfish media.
I just gotta clear something up. You weren't the 12th man on the field.
Right?
There is no easy way to get anything ever.
This is Mornings with Matt, the Deering Acting Studio podcast, where we discuss the connection between life and acting.
Alrighty, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Mornings with Matt show. Today we are talking about street smarts.
Street smart.
I am Matthew Deering here with Joey Sweeney. We're going to ask you to hit that subscribe button. We sure appreciate that. So, what's the idea with street smarts? Street smarts versus book smarts. And why is that so important? I mean, because this is massive. Street smarts is what I associate to experience. And book smart is what I associate to having an intellectual understanding of something, but not necessarily the experience of it. Mm-hmm. And put another way, I feel like book smarts are gonna get you ahead. They're gonna push you forward. Whereas street smarts are going to help you survive. Street smarts are about survival. That's what street smarts are all about. And there are stories of like even rap artists who have come up and come out of, say, like the street, literally dealing drugs, and turned an empire into a legitimate music empire.
Yeah.
They learned how to do business on the street. They had street smarts, and they brought that into a corporate world, and they just crushed.
Totally.
I'd say that in business, I'm a personal example of 100% street smarts. I did 0 business classes in college. 0. I took 0 accounting classes. I took the math I had to take to get through. I was a pre-med major for 3.5 years, and then I ended up with a degree in the arts, which, you know, by all accounts and purposes there, it's like, okay, what are you going to do with that? You got 3/4 of the way through a professional degree, and then you transferred over to the arts, which really you don't need. It doesn't necessarily help you, except for if you're going to become a teacher in that thing, which I sort of ended up becoming. But the point is, I didn't even need the degree for it necessarily. So, you know, the degree for me was just, quite frankly, I finish what I start. That's always been something about me. I'm going to finish the thing I started. So for me, it was like, why go to college for 3.5 years, even though I know I'm not going to use my degree, but why go that long and not walk away with a piece of paper? So I ended up going another 1.5 to 2 years on top of that, because most of the credits didn't transfer, just so I could say, okay, I finished this, I accomplished this thing, right? And so where do I get some of my street smarts? I'm going to tell you, it comes from my experience. So I always talk about, and I try to help others with this, but maybe I'm downplaying how hard it is. Maybe I'm downplaying my own personal experience in the area of street smarts. And the area that I'm talking about is when there's an emergency, when things are the craziest and the most out of control. That's when you want to be your calmest. You want to work toward being completely relaxed, completely calm. Well, where might I have learned that? Turns out, I now that I look back on it, I worked in an emergency room for 3 years.
Yeah.
It was a blue trauma center. I was tasked with, once I earned my spot, I had to earn it. It took me a year just to get into the spot that I ended up being, which was a patient care tech, which I really enjoyed that job. That was a really, really fun job. If that's all that medicine was, I probably would have ended up as a doctor.
Interesting.
Because I did like that part of it. I didn't really like the politics of medicine. It was not attractive to me. So anyway, I was tasked, once I had earned the position, of running up to the roof when the helicopter would come and pull off the worst of the worst cases. I mean, I'm talking about like one time there was a kid, he's like 16, and I won't name names, but his dad was a very famous dealership owner in town. Like, you would know the name the second I said it. His son came in, and he had been driving his expensive speedboats and driving the speedboats, and boom, crashed, was in critical condition. And I'm tasked with going up to the helicopter, helping the EMTs move the patient from the helicopter to a bed, getting the bed down to the operating room, and doing so in such a way that you have to be efficient, you have to be fast, you got to be quick, but you can't drop the patient. You know, like you got to get him to the people that need to have him as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. And then I'll never forget this, when it comes time to work on the patient. They come in, they pull everything off the patient, they start doing the basics. There's the basics you're going to do for everybody every time. You're going to take their pulse, you're going to take their blood pressure, you're going to take some blood, you're going to, depending on what's going on, you'll put a breathing machine on them, you'll start doing, CPR, whatever. Those things happen, and they just happen. I mean, automatically, they've already know what's going on with the patient. The patient comes down, the crew starts working, but everyone's got their one job, and they're doing it very well, and they're doing it calmly. Well, the person who's the most calm is the physician, the ER doctor. And the ER doctor walks in, rolls up his or her sleeves, and just starts asking questions, starts observing the patient, starts looking at all the numbers that are coming through now, because they had numbers, they've already studied those numbers, but now they want to see the real numbers. Mm-hmm. So there's like, these are the numbers coming from the helicopter and coming from the ambulance, and now I got to see the numbers, those numbers compared to these real numbers that I'm seeing from my crew.
Yeah.
And what's what. And then they just start barking orders very calmly, give X amount of cc's of this. Okay, I want this. Okay, and I've seen it. I mean, I've literally done it, actually. The little machines where you go, like, I've done that.
Clear.
I've done that. The clear. I've done it. It's crazy.
But you forgot to say clear. I feel like that's a really important piece of,
clear.
Yeah.
Like I've literally had my hands on that machine. Nuts. And I kind of forgot about that. But what happens is, my heart is beating like a bazillion miles an hour, right? It makes me nervous. The doctor would come over and go, as I get it set, would just move my hand 1 inch. Right, cool. Well, I would not feel confident doing that right now.
Yeah.
But 10 years ago, I would, actually.
Totally.
Because I was doing it.
Yeah, every day.
Even if I read a book on it right now, I wouldn't feel confident. But by doing it every day, you gain that confidence, and all of a sudden, you've got what's called street smarts. I relate this back to you, Joey, in a couple different ways, and we'll get to work here in a second, but there's this idea of overcoming our fears. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And to give somebody else a shot, like a needle, and to stick a needle in somebody, it's nerve-wracking a little bit. because you're hurting them, like you're doing it. And I used to do this in the emergency room all the time, take blood, do different things. Well, you're out of practice and you get nervous again immediately. Well, then there was a time when my wife was pregnant last time and I had to give her shots continuously. Every day she had to get a shot in the belly and she's pregnant. I mean, like terrifying, for me to do.
Totally.
But after the first 3-4 times, it was nothing.
Yeah.
It was nothing for me. It was like I knew how to do it. I knew it wasn't going to hurt her. I had the confidence. I had the street smarts to do that. You, and you can tell me how old you were, but you at a very young age were tasked with having to give yourself a shot.
Yeah. Yeah. 13 years old.
13 years old. Okay, so you're 13, and doctor says, hey, here's a big old needle. I need you to stab yourself with it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was nuts. I remember that appointment like the back of my hand. And I had probably the best doctor I've ever had in my life. For when my ALPS was the worst, I was blessed with the best physician that I've ever met. Like this man. And this is what he did. He told me that. And obviously I was scared out of my mind. Nobody wants to get a shot, but especially nobody wants to give a shot to themselves.
Right.
At that age especially. I'm like, needles are bad, like
Yeah.
Like that's like having a knife. You're not supposed to stab somebody, like
or yourself.
You're asking me to stab myself now.
Right.
And this doctor, this man came up to me and he brought in a needle full of saline and he said, I am not going to ask you to give yourself a shot first. He said, I want you to give me a shot. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. And he pulled up his shirt and he was like, you do it to me first.
Dang.
And then you do it to yourself.
Dude, baller.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you did it to him.
Yeah. 13 years old. I just stabbed my doctor. Like it was crazy.
That's a good doctor, bro.
Yeah, yeah. Like how many doctors are really gonna tell you, like they're gonna give you that diagnosis and then they're gonna put saline in a needle and have you do it to them.
Right.
I don't think I've ever heard of somebody doing that or met somebody who did that, but he had been along with me on this journey. Like he knew everything I've been through and I think he could just see.
Well, and I'll bet you anything too. He knew kids.
Yeah.
He knew youth and he was like, I'm going to get in the boat with you. I love you more than anything else right now. You're the only thing that's important to me. Mm-hmm. And I've got the street smarts to tell you this isn't going to hurt you. This is going to help you.
Yeah.
Let me prove it to you. That's amazing. That's a really cool story, bro.
Yeah, I love him. His name's Dr. Williams.
Dr. Williams. Big shout out to Dr. Williams. So tell me then. So after you give yourself the first shot, okay, and the doctor's probably got you laughing, probably got you feeling good. You do it. You get a cookie, so to speak, right? You do it. You get praised. Then what? Then you got to do it again at home, right? Like the next day, like the very next day. Could you do it?
Yeah, totally.
Just like that. Just boom.
Yeah.
One thing.
I mean, I think that the helpful thing is it was just after giving him the shot, I was like, cool, it can't hurt anybody.
When did it become easy?
Probably, couple weeks in.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, about the same amount of time it took for me with like.
Yeah. It became a process then. And it's interesting because I don't do it every day now, often. Every now and then I have to go back to every day, but probably it's like once a week. And it's something where it just doesn't go away.
Right.
So there's not a fear point there anymore.
Right. It's never gonna feel good.
It's just like a process.
It's never gonna feel like a massage.
Yeah, for sure.
It's always gonna feel like a poke, which is annoying. I have a little bee sting.
Yeah.
But you've got your street smarts. That's amazing. That's a really cool story. And so so then if we take now let's wrap it back to work here for a second, okay, and go all right. So here's how and why you want to create your street smarts. So if we take you and you've learned here on the job through what I call the School of Hard Knocks, which is going to be its own episode, but you've gone through the School of Hard Knocks here at the Deering Acting Studio, and the Hard Knocks is honestly facing me.
Yeah.
Day in and day out.
100%.
I know what I know. I know what I don't know, but I know what I don't know is also very limited, so that there's always going to be more to learn and always more to do. And you being on the job here, I don't know, I don't think you'd be able to operate at the level you currently operate at had you started editing school the exact same time that you started working here.
Yeah.
You've got a leg up from the experience. Now it's up to you, though, to continue to educate yourself and not limit yourself to what I know or what I see or what I think might be potential. But you should be looking and pushing and trying to find new ways to innovate, new ways to make yourself better. You should be watching shows, watching edits, and going, I want to know how they did that, and trying to do it. And if you do that, you'll be in this constant state of learning, but you'll have the street smarts to back it up, where you could get any job. You become valuable to the market, and so valuable that of course I'm going to try my best to hang on to you. Like that's the idea, and that's what I've told you from the beginning. Like I want that for you.
Yeah.
You know, I literally do.
Totally.
And so that's really cool. You know, like to me, that's an amazing thing.
Well, and going back to that, like it goes back to, you're right. It very much came up that way, and it came up that way in a sense of, hey, you know, this job is something that you've worked your way towards, and I think you can do it. And I didn't believe in myself, and you were like, no, you can do it. Like I got you. I really think that you have the skills, and you'll get there. And I like the way that you've taught yourself, and I think you have so much more to learn, but you can do it, and I can see it for you. And that was something I couldn't see for myself, but you saw it in me. And so it's been this thing where since that day, once I bought in, which it took a while, but once I did, like, things just started sort of moving. I was learning, like, this does this, and this is a mistake that frequently happens. So let me go backwards and count my mistakes and go, okay, well, if this happens frequently, then that should be a focus of mine every time I turn on this equipment.
100%. So hey, I'm gonna turn to a couple comments here. We have a comment from somebody who's out of the country. I'm gonna start there, and then we'll backtrack to a few of the other comments here. But I want to address this really right away. So the question is, hi, how do I enter Hollywood? And I want the work videos about how to enter Hollywood. Thank you. So I want to address that head on. And,
Sure.
And first and foremost, we do have a virtual program. I've talked to a couple people recently. Somebody from Sri Lanka, and Paula Kalogbo from Africa, that he's going to be coming back, it looks like, and
Nice.
I'd love to have this person from Sri Lanka in our program as well. But I want to also recommend this book right here, something I wrote called Acting is My Day Job, 7 Strategies to Market and Make Money as an Actor. And one of the biggest things in here actually is be a producer. And that essentially is gaining street smarts in acting.
Yeah, 100%.
It's doing. So you want to know how to get into Hollywood. Well, the first and foremost, you got to let go of Hollywood. Hollywood is this like elusive thing, and they've kind of created this I don't know, I'm just going to call it fake. Like this fake concept of this is what success is. Mm-hmm. And rather than focusing on that, because I believe as soon as you let go of it, you'll end up there or beyond there. But there's no reason to wait for them to tell you that you're good enough. So to make it to Hollywood, I'll tell you what you got to do. Here's how you make it to Hollywood. You get on a plane and you fly to Hollywood. You've made it. You're there. Mm-hmm. Okay. If that's your destination, all you got to do is show up, because then you're there physically. But you don't mean Hollywood. That's not what you mean. That's not the question you're asking. Not really. The question you really want to know is, how do I be successful as an actor? That's what you really want to know. And the answer to that is you have to act. You must be doing. The thing you want to do, that you want to become great in, must become a daily pursuit. You have to seek teachers, establishments that are going to lift you up and challenge you and push you to be better. And this is no matter where you live. So if you live in Africa, you live in Sri Lanka, you live in the United States, you live in a small town in Wickenburg, you live in, in the big city of Phoenix, you live in LA, none of that matters, because the person who works the hardest, the person who's putting in the most time, over time, is going to win. And that's the person where you get so good that they can't not hire you. They'd like to not hire you because you're that small, you're that small town person, or you're the person that's coming from out of the country, and it's like, oh, I'd rather not hire that person. But you're so good that they cannot ignore you. Mm-hmm. That's the secret to getting into Hollywood. And that is you earning your street smarts as an actor, is by writing your own stuff, producing your own stuff, being in things, doing things consistently, and honestly, failing miserably. If without failure, you gain no street smarts. You have to fail. It's very important.
Yeah. No, that's interesting, and it's funny because you going off on that sort of, it just like sparked because we were already in this, but I feel like you hit that point with me a little bit, like about a year and a couple months in, because I used to come in and I'd just mop the floors and I would clean, and that was it, right?
Yeah.
Then I would watch from the back of class, cool. Then I would mop the floors, I would clean, watch from the back of class. Then I started to do a little bit of editing. I wasn't very good at it. I really then honed in on the jump cut so much, though, that like my nickname became Jump Cut. It was a thing because that was something where, like, for whatever reason, my brain could see it and then get the information out as fast as possible with little like crazy jumps back and forth. Mm-hmm. It was like very like motion, right? And then over time, like those skills built upon each other, and you were like, okay, cool. Like now's the time. Like I'm gonna offer you that first check.
But you know what? I don't know if you remember this. I'm sure you remember this. You did the jump cut. You got very good at the jump cut, and I allowed that to happen because I wanted that skill to become perfected. Mm-hmm. But then I sat you down and I said, just so you know, the jump cut is not good.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That was a hard thing for you to even wrestle with.
Totally. Yeah.
Because you were like, I spent all this time on it. I'm like, it's good. It's a skill. It's a skill I want you to have, and it's a skill they use on the internet, definitely. But it's a skill that they use to cover up good editing. So let me show you about good editing, good storytelling. That's different than what you're doing. Yeah. And what you're doing is good, it's valuable, it's necessary, it's something that we are going to use and we want to know how to do. However, now it's time to back up and go, how do I not jump cut? Mm-hmm. Is there a way to not get caught jump cutting? Yeah. Is there a way to cut time out without the audience knowing? And now that you know that, I know that videos that jump cut and cheat too much probably bother you.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Even my old videos, so you're right, and I totally remember that, and I love that because that's what opened the arsenal. Otherwise, I would just be jump cutting all the time. Right.
But now there's going to be a time, and there are times when like you need to jump cut. Mm-hmm. Like it's important to jump cut. It's that video. It's a particular style that you're going for in that moment. Yeah, boom. That's great.
Yeah.
That's sure. Great. But it's not your only tool, and you're not lying to yourself or being stuck in a perspective where somebody is lying to you and telling you that this is good, because it is good, but it's not like, someone's not telling you that there's another way that you don't know about. Yeah. So then you're not overly confident in something that you shouldn't be overly confident in.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't take you next level. It's like you said, it's a skill. Yeah. So it's worth something, but it has to be in the right moment. If you're going for a motivational video, nobody wants to hear a jump cut through it. It's those type of videos, and there's plenty of them. Right. It's a slow process. You want to hear the full story. You want to hear the ums a little bit. You want to hear like the thought versus just like, here's all the information and I'm going to give you really quick, and it's going to go boom, and now I cut to this frame and I'm already in the middle of another sentence.
Absolutely. I want to say good morning also to a couple of our fans out there. We've got Astrid, Nick. Looks like Corinne might be out there. Good morning, everybody. And Nick makes a good point here. He says his buddy went to West Point and is a doctor, but couldn't tie his own shoes. He was always more book smart.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I love that.
But you know what? It's interesting. You mentioned doctoring. My dad's a doctor. He's been a doctor for a long time. And when I watch my dad doctor, he's really good at it.
Yeah.
He's really good at doctoring. And the reason he's good at doctoring, I think, is because he listens. He really listens, you know? And I experienced this recently with my knee. I had a doctor who was very good at his job. As a matter of fact, the next doctor, 2 down from him, looked at the ACL that he did, and he goes, "That's the best one I've ever seen." Like, he looked at it on the MRI. He's like, that's beautiful work there. He didn't fix the problem, though. The problem now is it's bone. It's broken bone. And it's a bummer that he missed it. It's a bummer he didn't get it done and get it done in the first try, because now I'm going on to my 3rd surgery. I'm 2 years in, and this is 2.5, and it should be done by now, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I don't blame him. I'm not one of those people that does that. But I've also decided to switch doctors. And what's interesting is I went to another doctor that I'm not using, because he specializes in knee replacements, and I'm going to try not to replace my knee if I don't have to.
Yeah.
But he was the first surgeon since I began this journey of fixing my knee that did a bunch of stuff to me. He laid me down. He picked up my knee. He moved it. He did all. He's like, "Does this hurt? Does this hurt?" He's like, "Oh, if that doesn't hurt, then it's got to be okay." He's like, "But then what hurt?" And then he had me like run down the hall and run back, and he watched my form. Like, he was really studying me to try to figure out how to match what he's seeing on the outside to what he was seeing on the inside.
Yeah.
And just taking my word for it that I've got extreme pain. And then that's when I got sent to another specialist who then looked at my MRI and said, "Oh, dude, you've got dead bone in there." And then he looked at me and goes, "Dead bone hurts." In other words, your pain is not phantom. You're in excruciating pain. There's a reason, and there's a couple different solutions we can do to fix it. And then he's the one that told me the other doctor did a great job on my ACL and is good and stuff. And I'm like, cool, like, that's great. But I wish also at the same time that maybe the doctor could have slowed down a little bit and been like, all right, let's also dive deeper into this, and let me trust this guy that he's not just like faking the pain, that there's something really real going on in there.
Yeah.
And I got to dig deep to find it and fix it.
100%.
Right.
No, that's in all professions, right? But it's very easy to see in the medical profession, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because there are doctors and nurses and people who assume they've got it and go off their knowledge, and their knowledge is the win for them. And then, like you said, there are doctors who are curious, who question.
Yeah.
And
being a good surgeon and being a good family practice doctor are 2 different things. You know, like, my dad's a family practice doctor, so his job is to listen to people to try to get to the deeper meaning. Whereas a surgeon, really, they need to be good with the instrument.
Yeah.
They don't really have to be good at talking to you. It's nice if they are, but you don't need that kind of street smarts necessarily. But you need the street smarts in doing what my dad did. My dad, he came up through the military. He was in the Army, and he was a medic in the Army. Well, a medic in the Army becomes a doctor if you go to war. Like, you get put on the front line and somebody's leg gets blown off and you're the next guy in line. Like, you have to figure out, you got to know what to do. I mean, those are street smarts. Like, you know, all of a sudden you become fearless when it comes to medicine.
You know, obviously your dad is older, so that was even before a lot of these regulations. So that's like even more street smart.
Yeah,
like,
but you
probably saw a lot.
But every regulation is thrown out during war. You know, you've heard me say this before. Yeah, you know, sometimes I'm like, bro, I love you. Just give me grace right now. I'm a wartime CEO.
Yeah.
And wartime means get out of my. Here's what wartime is to me. It's follow me, or lead me, or get out of my way. I don't mind being led during war.
Yeah.
I don't mind it. I don't have to be the leader, but I know stuff's got to get done. It's got to get done now. And that was General Patton, by the way. That's a quote by General Patton. I'm not taking that one for myself. But I love it.
Yeah.
I actually read that this morning and I was like, that is such a good quote. But this idea of lead me, follow me, or get out of my way, which means take action, like do something right now. That is war, right? So anyway, every regulation, everything is completely irrelevant during war. When you're in the trenches with a guy and his arm gets blown off, it doesn't matter. You don't even have to be a medic.
Yeah.
You're the next guy up. I don't know what to do, so I'm going to grab my belt or my pants sleeve or something, and I'm going to pull it off, and I'm going to tie something around it because I think, well, that's what I've seen on the movie. Like, I'm going to do that. And you're not going to get in trouble for it because all the regulations are out.
Yeah.
Like, it's just you trying, like, you're going to take a bottle of alcohol and pull out the top and just pour it on there and be like, all right, I'm trying to help the best I can.
Yeah.
The regulations are out the door. This is war, baby.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's what my
crazy.
dad went through. That's the kind of training he got. And I knew a couple of my peers when I worked in the ER that were EMTs who had been to war, who had been to Iraq, who had been on the front lines like that. And those dudes, man, whew, there was a big difference between them and me. Their fearlessness with the needle, their fearlessness when they went up to the helicopter and like because they had seen way worse. Like this was like,
Yeah.
you know, this was the easy part.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy what street smarts will give you.
So I also think street smarts is making your way to your goal, right? Getting there when you're doubted the whole way there, right?
Say that again.
Like you made your way to your goal. You did that. You get to the job or whatever it is, and you were doubted the whole way along. You know, nobody thought you could do it even once you got there, and then you continue to have to prove yourself every day.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I don't know if that would be called street smarts, but that's definitely a way that people have to gain street smarts. So yes,
Interesting.
yes, in an essence, because here's the thing: if you're not handed something, you got to go get it. When you go get it, you're gonna fail. You're gonna gain the street smarts. Like that's what's gonna happen.
Gotcha.
And the more people are against you, the more you're gonna fail. Actually, so they think they're like helping themselves and they're hurting you. But as long as you don't quit, they're actually just making you stronger. Every time they try to become an obstacle for you, they're just making you stronger.
Yeah.
That's the title. The obstacle will make you stronger.
See, we found it by
We had a title on the
doing
board, but
this
we couldn't
show.
find it. The obstacle will make you stronger. That's going to be
Boom.
another title. Okay, so I want to wrap up street smarts here, and this is going to be for the kids out there. This is for everybody, really. But street smarts, I think one of the most important street smarts that a human being can have is this the idea of the fight or flight response, and stranger danger, and especially women in vulnerable positions against like predators of sorts. But the same goes for any kids or really any men. It doesn't matter. It's just the idea of predator and prey. I only say women because it tends to be like that is the majority of predators are men on women. Like that happens, and adults on children, which is horrific. But what you want to gain is this idea of the street smarts inside of you to know, understand, feel instinct, and follow that instinct. It's so very, very important. So what does that look like? You feel this little thing in your stomach well up, and you trust it. And you gain that over time from experience, from learning, but you don't want here's one time you don't want you really have to avoid that experience to know 100% that something's bad, right?
Yeah.
And I would say that this particular street smart, it does live inside of us. But because of the current society we live in and political correctness and all that junk, I'm just going to call it junk because I think it's horrific what's happening. We want to fight against that and go into instinct. You don't have to be polite to every person. You definitely don't have to be polite to somebody who gives you the creepers.
Yeah.
You've got to be strong. You have to be willing to walk away. You have to be willing to speak up. As a kid, you have to be willing to scream. As a woman, you have to be willing to scream, run. You can't be like, oh, I don't want to hurt this person's feelings. Like, no, sorry.
Yeah.
If they're giving you the creeps, like that's it. You got to make that choice quickly. And if you're wrong, bummer. I'm wrong. It sucks. I'm sorry that you felt bad, but I had to protect myself. But if I'm wrong in the other direction, it's not bummer. It's like that could ruin your life. Mm-hmm. So you have to follow instincts in this particular area.
Yeah.
And how do you do it? How do you gain those kinds of street smarts? Well, I think you got to ask questions. You got to be logical. You have to really like feel what's real, right? So with our kids, we are teaching self-defense through daddy's hard knocks. We are teaching self-defense. We are teaching speaking up. But my kids are not afraid of adults. My kids are not afraid to question adults. My kids know when to run, when to scream, when to hit. I've taught them about different pressure points. I've pinned them down as an adult and made them get out of it. Made them hurt me on purpose so that they can get out. And I've had them go up to strangers and talk to the strangers that are safe.
Yeah.
So this happened the other day. We're at this event for my kids, and there was a bobcat right outside, like a big old bobcat, and I didn't see it, but this other guy did. And I was taking Finn out to the car to get a bottle or his like sippy cup, and to come back in. And as I'm on my way out, the guy's like, "Hey, just be careful. There's a bobcat out here. I just saw it." I'm like, "Really?" And he's holding his kid. I'm holding my kid. He's like, "Yeah, it's big." And he kind of ran through here and jumped up there. And I'm like, "Okay, Finn's kind of crazy. He'd run away from me, and I don't want any deals with a bobcat." So
I don't want to play with the cat.
yeah, so I kept him in my arms the whole time, but I'm not scared either. So I go get the sippy cup, come back, and I'm telling everybody there's a bobcat. Like, it's crazy. Well, my son Jack finds out about the bobcat, and he's like, "Dad, can we go outside and look for the bobcat?" And I was like, "Yeah, son, we definitely can do that. That sounds great." So my daughter's like, "Can I come?" I was like, "Let's go. We're going bobcat hunting right now." I knew we weren't going to find it, but I wanted them to not be afraid, and they got dad with them. And I know how animals work. Like, I know how to keep my distance and all that kind of, like, I understand. So we go out there and we don't find the bobcat. We come back. And my son's just, he cannot let it go. Jack cannot let this go. And the guy who told me about it, he's the biggest guy in the room. He's probably twice my size, like just a big old dude. He could be a linebacker. And it's a pretty small, like, gathering, pretty small room, And so my son's like, who saw the bobcat? I'm like, "Why do you want to know?" And he's like, "Because I want to ask him about the bobcat. I want to know about it." And I was like, "It was that big guy over there." And he's like, "Oh." And I was like, "He's all the way across the room." I go ask him. And my son walked right up to him, tapped him on the, and looks up at this big old tall dude and goes, "Tell me about the bobcat." And I'm watching. He's safe. I know the guy, safe. But my son never met him.
Yeah.
Okay. And in that particular case, he's fearless. But if he responded in such a way that was creepy or weird my son would feel it, and he would know how to, he's okay with that. So the fact that he's not afraid and yet willing to go into it, those are like two different things, right? Because if I just say like blanket stranger danger, that's sort of tough to navigate that as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
Versus here's what a sneaky adult will do.
Yeah.
Here's what you're looking for. Here's how you know somebody's a predator. Here's the feeling you're going to feel. That's, I think, what you really want to accomplish with your kids, and what we all want to know when it comes to street smarts, how to protect ourselves. You don't trust anybody ever. You just don't. You don't trust them. But at the same time, you use your street smarts, you listen, and you open up to people. But at the same time, you're always aware of what could be, what could possibly be. And that awareness is something that I want my kids to have. I want to have. I want you to have. I want my wife to have. Is just this awareness, this street smarts of walking down the street and watching your back. There's another. There's one. I'll give you. I'm sorry. I said I was going to wrap, but I'll give you one more example here that I think is kind of cool. I was teaching my son how to mow the lawn, yesterday. He's finally big enough. He's 8. He's almost 9 now, and he's big enough. He's strong enough to push the lawnmower. He has a hard time with the edges, and he can't start it yet or anything, but he can push it. So I had him do that while I was using the blower, and so I taught him about it. But I first taught him the safety, because it's a big machine and it's dangerous. And these were my exact words to my son. I said, all right, here, when you're dealing with a big piece of machinery like this, you want to respect the machine and what it's capable of doing, but you don't want to be afraid of it. If you're scared of it, if you operate from fear, something's going to go wrong. But if you don't respect it, you're going to do something wrong. So I taught him about the little safety thing and how when you let go of the safety thing, it stops. Then I said why it's there. And I'm like, watch this. And then I pulled it up too before it was on. And I said, this cannot hurt you right now. You don't need to be afraid of it. But reach your hand in there and touch that big old propeller, that big blade. And he touches it. And I'm like, and he's scared. And he touches it. I was like, try to turn it. He's like, all right, you can't even turn it. This thing cannot hurt you right now. But when this thing is spinning a bazillion miles an hour here, and it's a big old piece of machinery, it could cut your hand off. It could just chop it right off. That's what it's capable of doing. Now, this safety over here, what's interesting is when I hold the safety on the end of the lawnmower, even with my big long arms, it's almost impossible for me to hold that and reach under to try to fix the lawnmower while it was going. So it's pretty hard for me to hurt myself. It's almost impossible unless I was dumb enough to tape the thing because I'm lazy and I don't want to hold it. So I would never do that. And my son's he's processing. And I'm like, but we respect it, because if we ever use this machine and chased our brother and sister, for instance, and it got them, you could really hurt somebody, like really, really hurt somebody, And he understood that. So there's this idea, again, of street smarts, of you understanding to respect something but not fear it. It's the respect that I give to a stranger to know what they're capable of doing is why I don't trust all the way to the end, because I know you're capable of evil because you're a human being. You're capable. So I respect you, but at the same time I don't fear you.
Yeah.
It's like sitting on the subway. You don't make eye contact with the guy that's trying to pick a fight, but you don't avoid eye contact either. Let's do a whole episode on stranger danger. I really want to go deep into that subject, and I know we're out of time.
Yeah.
I think stranger danger would be great, and I think we should make sure that we've got a teenager audience on that day. I think that would be important. We'll do a teen quarantine. We'll go back.
Yeah.
Old school. Let's revive teen quarantine while Brian's gone. Let's bring it back. Let's have it roaring, and then we'll tune Brian in from the hospital. We'll bring it. We'll get that going. I think that's a good idea. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the Mornings with Matt show on the Deering Acting Studio podcast channel. Sure appreciate you tuning in. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, help us spread this light-driven content to the planet. Thank you, and God bless.
Thanks for listening to Mornings with Matt. Please like, subscribe, and follow us at Deering Acting Studio to keep up with the latest content. For more information on classes, private lessons, or professional development coaching, visit www.deeringstudio.com. Have a Deering day, everyone.